much.
Thanks. Can everyone hear us online? Is this better for you? I think
Check.
Louisa was saying something. Yeah? Okay. I'm going to start. Hello, everybody. I'm Paradise. I am the former CEO and founder of the company that was known as Albaloo, which is now joined forces with 923. I am now the Chief Revenue Officer of that. You will be hearing about that in the papers next week. And right here is Andrew, and he is the CEO of 923. They've actually been in Boston for 11 years and have done a lot of great work building products, and I've done a lot of great work building marketing, so we put our two heads together. So today we're going to talk a little bit about 923. We're going to review the product and growth cycle really quickly. We're going to talk about revenue management, and then we'll go into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, which will start with product and how do you build your product. Then we'll go with growth and how do you grow your product. And then we'll talk about how to connect your product and growth cycles together with a few plays, and then we'll take any questions. Also, if you have questions, feel free to interrupt us as we're talking, or if you want to type it into the chat, we can also see the chat right there. Awesome. Moving on to the next section. Take it away, Andrew.
My microphone works too. Fantastic. All right. So I'm Andrew. I'm the CEO of 923, and we've been building products for, like Party said, 12 years now. Well, really, 11 and a half years. Our mix of products is between mobile, web, and AI. We've been building AI products since 2016. I think just people found out last year that AI products are like a big trend. So they come to us for those products as well. We've been building in Boston too. As you see on the screen here, there's Experian, Pebble, which is another presenter later this afternoon, which you highly should check out. We've also built for Suffolk and Safety First. Those are Boston companies, but we are worldwide. We support customers from anywhere in the world. We've built 80 products in the course of those 11 years. A lot of startups, in our early days, but now we're focused on established brands and funded startups. It's just kind of the evolution of having an agency and growing from product to product. A little bit about myself. I was a nuclear submarine engineer up until 2012 when I started 923. That allowed me to get my hands dirty on mechanical parts, and I was a mechanical engineer when I worked there. But I invented a Bluetooth triangulation chipset that allowed people to track parts on manufacturing floors. It gave me the introduction into how to build software. And then after building all of these pieces of software for 80 years, I finally feel like I have an idea of how to build software. So it took a while, but we have been recognized in Boston. We're the 11th fastest growing company last year. And this year will be our third consecutive year in Inc. 5000. Hopefully our revenues stay up this year and we can go for 4.
We're going to go for 4. Because I'm here. So my name is Paradise. I started my whole career in Boston doing Twitter and social media once I graduated college. Then I realized you can have 10,000 Twitter followers and you can still have $0 in your bank account. So that could be a problem in life. So since then, I've kind of been working on building and growing and understanding really how to connect your marketing following to your revenue and your product and your users and having that grow. I worked at 3 different startups in Boston. All 3 were acquired successfully. And then I started Albaloo, which was also joining in with 923. So I just like to say I'm 4 for 4 on that side. And then so I've been doing this for about 15 years. I learned how to do sales the past 8 years. I've been doing marketing since I was 19. And now you're going to learn all the bits about both marketing and sales from me. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So one of the big problems we had as just a product studio is we would constantly build the product and then launch it and give it to somebody else to go help grow it. I truly think at this point, and Parties and I have had deep conversations about what percentage of a successful company is based on sales and marketing versus product. I think it's close to 90% sales and marketing. The product is important. It obviously is the vehicle that allows you to take money from a customer and put it into your pocket. But the sales and marketing aspect of that is truly the aspect in which you need to understand through the growth cycle of how to then produce the correct product for your customers. And so when we look at this figure 8 now, the reason why Albaloo was so important to our future was there's an entire subset of how a product journey can go from when a person when a customer gets introduced to the product all the way through that life cycle until they're finally paying for a product. And it's sales and marketing that attracts those individuals. So we're going to start the conversation with the middle. And ironically, it's the most important, but it is the revenue generation side of how to build a product. Over the years, we've gone through all of these different industries, different mechanisms, different ways to produce products. And it ends up that the culture of a business, the individual that has founded that business, the direction, the path that they're on, and then most importantly, the customers they attract to that business is vital to understanding why does that business exist, and what is it trying to serve? It's no longer, especially in 2023, it's no longer how fast can you get to the market, the whole build it and they will come. It's kind of a falsehood. You truly need to have an established business that is producing some sort of profit so that you can invest in innovation, invest in sales, and invest in marketing. And so go back real quick, sorry. The reason why I put these 4 books on the slide was there's different ways to think about your business. The 0 to 1 methodology, I think we've all read when we were younger, or the lean startup. Those are the ideas to kind of just throw the product in the marketplace and see what happens, and then learn from the results of the customers interacting with it. It's a harder path to go down if you don't have a lot of money or venture capital to kind of support that. So the 0 to 1 is a methodology, and it surely is successful. We've seen incredible companies come from that. But there's other business models that are still supporting the idea of building for profit, building for business, using that profit for innovation. And that's where you get the E-Myth revisited and also traction. It's the concept around building a successful business so that you can work on your business, not in your business. And once you start putting the pieces in place, like an entire marketing agency, you start realizing that there's another level you can get to with your clients and your customers so that you can support their needs in a more successful manner. The last book, if you've never read it, The Goal, that is one of the best business books I've read personally. The entire concept is, what is the most important aspect of a business? And he discovers at the end through his journey that it is to make money so that he can use that money in a very innovative way so that he can help his manufacturing shop prosper. So looking at all the different revenue models, we've heard the buzzwords on Twitter: SaaS models, B2B, digital transformation, freemium, right? And so when you're starting off a business, you think, great, I'm going to be a freemium product because that's going to attract the most customers. And when you think of buzzwords, they don't represent your culture, they don't represent your business, and they don't truly represent your product. You need to evolve into a model that your customers can actually appreciate why they're buying from you. And so if you want to go to the next slide, we asked the question, why will people buy from you? And in 2023, I think that answer is a lot different than in 2016 or even 2012. Before, we were all kind of new to how the internet worked. Social media was starting to pick up, and people were willing to try out different types of products. 20 years later, we're now looking at the internet as a way that we're trying to extract the most value for each of the individuals, but the businesses that exist have a great culture and a great brand and a great community. We're going to talk a lot about community today. But my favorite example is you think of the 2 candy bars. And I'm sure you guys have all been to the grocery store and tried each of these candy bars. They're in the same aisle, right? You walk down to CVS, they're right next to each other. And you would easily say they're competitors to each other. But in fact, if you break down why people buy each a Snickers or a Milky Way, there's 2 different thought processes that happen in the person that's buying the candy bar. For instance, Snickers. When I think of a Snickers, or the last time any of you had a Snickers, you're typically trying to eat, or when you decide to purchase that Snickers, you're typically thinking, I need to replace a meal. So in fact, Snickers competition is Powerade. Maybe it's coffee. Maybe Snickers competition is like a good run, or something that is like replacing a meal that is like making you think, I need to have a Snickers instead of a coffee because I just don't have time. Snickers advertisement has the whole thing about being hangry, right? They focused this on themselves too and said, we know why people are buying Snickers. It's because they're interested in the meal, and we can give them a Snickers bar as opposed to them buying a Powerade. Now, Milky Way is a treat. You have that after you're done a long day, and you're thinking, all right, I want some chocolate. A Milky Way kind of comes to mind. And so it replaces really a glass of wine, maybe a beer, maybe a brownie, right? So when you think of users and why they're buying your products, you truly have to think of what are they doing, what are they thinking, how are they interacting with their current environment, and what are their struggles. And in this case, the struggle of a Snickers is I'm hungry, and the Milky Way is I need some emotional, pick-me-up, and so a Milky Way. And that user is not going to replace those 2 products. So when we think of all the businesses that we've built over the years, Pardis and I have different methodologies that really explain these 4 everything you guys do in business is a 2x2 chart, right? So she has her 2x2 chart. But when we talk about this, it's the exact same, right? All these books we read, you end up driving to first principles of these 4 categories. And every business that her and I can ever think of will fall into one of these categories, at least at the beginning. HubSpot is one of those ones that can kind of migrate through. But I don't have my awesome animations, but originally I had hidden these. And the top left corner here, you think of differentiated strategies. And those ideas are when you build a product that costs a lot more, but solves a problem in a more streamlined way. So Nest, the iPhone, and Uber Select are great examples of a differentiated strategy. It solves the problem of, hey, I know I need a product, I know I'm willing to pay more, but I'm going to get a better experience. So the one in the bottom left here is discrete strategy. It's one of my favorites because it's like, here's a product because you need it, and I don't even care if I have customer service behind it. But like airport food is a perfect example. We're willing to pay a lot of money because we're hungry, even though we know the quality is going to be very poor, right? I put Salesforce in this category. I don't hope none of you work for Salesforce, but I think they have that concept of like, they get the job done worse, and you're not really happy using Salesforce, but you're like, it's what I got, and it costs a lot of money.
They haven't updated their UX since 2006. Even with Lightning, I would argue it's the same thing.
Yeah, and Zoom's the same way, right? I think Zoom's icons are from 1982.
Yeah,
and so they throw them on us, even though they're a billion-dollar company. The disruptive strategy is, if you talk to a startup, they always say, I want to be in this quadrant. Do they have the cash? Do they have the money? Do they have the support to really go after and charging less for high quality? And they don't get the job done really efficiently early on in their stage. They're willing just to go into the market and see what sticks. So ChatGPT is probably the most recent one that we can all think about that just floods the market as quickly as possible. They're charging less, but they're really a worse off scenario than Google search, right? For some cases it's better, but it lies to you. It gives you false answers. It doesn't really solve the problem. You still have to go to Google. So it's cool to use, and like Google Docs, another good example as well. And then in the top is probably, our most common, later stage of products that we've built of the dominant strategy. Those are the products that they get the job done better, and they charge less than what's there. It's a very hard strategy to conquer, but once you're in that space, like somebody like HubSpot, you'll be in that market for a very long time.
Yeah, and it's volume, which is nice, which means that we can market to them forever and we'll still have customers.
Exactly. So every business sells a product, right? Every customer buys products, and they have options when they buy products. When businesses sell a skateboard, they have a bunch of things that they have to manufacture. They have to find the best wheels that are faster than any of the other skateboard wheels. And I'm pretty sure the trucks are what you slide on, and I'm sure there's different levels of strength in those trucks. You have your bushings, which determines how fast the wheels spin. And I'm sure you can buy like really, really expensive bushings, and businesses will push this. And if you look at the feature page and you're buying a skateboard, you'll see the design, you'll see the fast wheels, you'll see the grip tape. And every user is going to be sitting there and thinking, I want that skateboard. But what they're truly thinking in their head, I wish I had the animation working, but they want to be able to do 900s like Tony Hawk. They don't necessarily want the best skateboard. They want the ability to look cool while using that product. And so the users have a different buying experience. And when we build software products, we're thinking, what does the user truly want with Uber? Do they care that the app can do all of these fancy things? Or do they just want to press a button and have a car pick them up, right? That's what we call jobs to be done. So our job is to build products that make companies more profit, right? And to do that, we have to truly understand why users are buying. Why are they coming out of their struggles and out of their decision-making and looking to one of our customers and saying, I'm trying to buy this product and I'm willing to go the extra mile to get all the way to the execution where I can give you my credit card. But our job is to determine where that profit comes from. So in a business, especially a business that is trying to do innovation, there's 4 levers you can pull, and people forget about 3 of them. They always think increasing revenue is the easiest way to create more profit. And truly it is. It is probably the most relevant, but you can also reduce COGS, you can reduce OPEX, and you can also increase your profit, kind of without increasing revenue, which is always a fun calculation to do when that happens. But the revenue aspect of this is very important, of course. But when you're building a larger business, innovation can come from your COGS and it can come from your OPEX. And that's where you get digital transformation. That's where you get efficiencies. That's where you get technology that is truly disrupting your organization and providing more profit just from the same resources that you had before. And that's when technology truly succeeds. So to go through the process of building a product, it's important that these loops are kind of adhered to once you start on the journey, right? So if you're going down the marketing path, Pardees will talk about that. But if you're going down the product design path or the development path, it's really important that you don't waste time on developing for no reason, right? There's a lot of products that have a 24-month roadmap, and 3 months into it, ChatGPT comes out. And they're like, great, now we got to scrap our 24-month roadmap and start focusing on AI, right? Whatever that means, we'll just throw AI on the website and hopefully we make some sort of money. But that's important to know that like your product roadmap should not be your product destination. And so if we look at the product design sprint, there's a menu of options we've created over the course of our 12 years. Those options are included for the users that are trying to figure out why people buy their products. And we have transitioned from, if you guys all know Jake Knapp, does anyone know Jake Knapp's Google Sprint methodology?
My favorite book.
Yeah, it's a good book. Everyone was using that. Every agency, every design agency was using a form of Jake Knapp's Google Design Sprint. And it's design thinking. You'll get those 2 diamonds. You've probably seen them in the wild. But we've transformed to jobs to be done. It seems to be more relevant that if you're looking at a user and you're trying to decide why are they purchasing something, what are their true struggles into that. So our jobs to be done is where we baseline every single product. We then move into persona development, user journey mapping, and competitor research. As I just showed you with the Snickers and Milky Way example, competitor research, truly, when you break it down to the essence of what you're doing, you're trying to find which products people are buying prior to switching over to yours. And so in the Snickers case, you never would have guessed that Powerade was a competitor. We probably would have listed out all the candy bars if we didn't do the jobs to be done. But that struggle was I'm hungry and I'm replacing a meal, I'm getting a Snickers, right? And you saw the smart people at Snickers change their advertising campaign. So we're going to go through 4 or 5 of these right now, and then Pardis is going to pick up the go-to-market strategies. So as I said with jobs to be done, it was formulated here in Boston at Harvard by a man named Clayton Christensen. He's recently passed away, which is unfortunate because he wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. It's a really, really great read, but it teaches you not only how to think from a user struggle standpoint, but it thinks about the process of focusing on the customer and their needs, right? What can a product actually solve? And I've talked a lot about that already, but you really want to prioritize all of the features that help that customer through their journey, as opposed to focusing on the actual end goal, which is them making a bunch of money on their own, right? You've all seen the big Facebook advertisement that's like, buy my product, make $10,000. ChatGPT will make you $10,000 a month. That's the mindset of the goal at the end, but what is the process at the beginning to get that user to actually sign up? And that's where jobs to be done comes in. If you think of a timeline of a user, there's 6 stages. There's 6 stages of what they call going into a product. And the first moment is a struggle moment, right? You have a first thought. You realize, I'm interested in my switching costs. I'm interested in getting a new bank. I'm interested in buying a new SaaS product. But I have a problem, and I'm wondering if a product can solve my problem. Then you start passively looking. You start figuring out what's on the market, what's around, how can I solve this problem that I have? You may ask friends, you might get referrals, you might get a Google ad. That's where she comes in, and she'll target you like all day long, every day. And then you finally decide, right? You're like, I'm going to make this purchase. And the most important thing about jobs to be done is after you consume that product and after you have it in your hands, you have this gratification moment where you think, did I make the right decision? And if you did not, you're never going to go back to that customer again, right? If you bought a ski and you realized everyone else is a better skier than me and it's not helping me be a better skier, you have buyer's remorse. And so when you build software products, after a while, you start realizing that there's no point in even starting building the product until you realize that that gratification cycle can be complete for the user. Because otherwise, you're just going to churn, and all of those users that you brought in with all of the marketing efforts are going to be gone in month 2 and 3. So when you think about why they're coming in and their switching costs, you also want to make sure that their switching cost away from your product is so complicated, it's so hard to do. Well, you don't want to give them like a navigation form that they can't click on and like the mouse moves, but you want them to be able to cancel, obviously. But without that, like you want them to understand that the value that they received from you is so valuable that they're not going to switch to another product. And so that's where jobs comes in and really allows you to think about that. Personas is that first step. And personas on itself is the idea of identifying who your users are and grouping them into a category that gives you the aspect of like, why is a user, this type of demographic, where are they located, why are they buying from me, and who are other people that are similar to them. And personas, it's a lot of fun to make because we did a product for Disney, and we created like Disney characters, right, for each of the personas. And you give that persona life. And then when you're building a product, you constantly think, will Anna buy this product? In our case, we had Anna and Wendy and Flynn, which are all Disney characters. And we would build a feature, and we'd say, who's this feature for? Who would use this feature? And we would say, Anna's not going to use this. She's a first-time Disney goer. She doesn't even know how this feature works. And then we'd realize Flynn, who's the expert, is too advanced for this feature. So we scrap it, right? We throw the feature out the window because it's not important for our personas. And personas are really the lifeblood that gives her like marketing juice to say, I'm going to now find more lookalike audiences that are similar to Anna's, that are similar to Wendy's. And that's why personas are so important to do early on in your process. And there's our Anna card. You know, she's overwhelmed by options. She's a 30-year-old Midwest. She has a bachelor's degree, stay-at-home mom. You're really giving life to the individuals and your customers. And then when you get a new customer that comes in the door, you're like, hey guys, I found another Anna. Maybe her name's Elsa, but anyone? No? But so you find individuals that are similar. And then you put them through what's called a user journey mapping. And a user journey mapping takes the touch points of how a user operates through your product through 4 stages: discovery, learn, use, and goals. And the discovery phase, the most important phase, is how are they being aware of the products you're trying to sell? And once you have your 4 personas or 5 personas, you list them vertically down the page, and you start to place sticky notes of, do they discover you on Facebook? Is it a referral? How are they learning about your product? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Right? And you can take an existing product and do the same exact process. And what you'll start to find is you can put struggle moments along every single pattern of here. And when we did this project here, this is for a manufacturing shop, all of our red sticky notes ended up right around the learning phase. How did they learn? How did the sales team learn to execute, to sell the products to their customers? So we didn't have to do much work besides like showing them this process. And the red sticky notes and the clump of those spoke for itself. So this is an important process in your journey of figuring out how your product is going to work. And then after all that, we had a great animation here about how cool this branding was. But once you know who your personas were, once you know who your user stories are and how you're going to map them from beginning to end, you can go into branding. And finally, you can start realizing this is why McDonald's is red and yellow. Burger King has red in it, right? There's also why HubSpot is orange, and every single social media platform ever is blue. It's this like reason why the customers are deciding to work with you, and then the feeling they have while they're with your brand, right? Blue is like a calming color. So therefore that blue sense in social media is supposed to allow you to be calm. I can imagine a red social media site will just promote more nasty comments, but maybe the blue at least subsides us a little bit. But yeah, so branding can be inserted at that point.
Went too far.
No, you're good, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. And now finally, after you have your branding, you can start prototyping. And to prototype, you do your user flow mapping, and you start to figure out at what point are people going to be using a database, what time are they going to be using apps, websites, products. All of that can be done in the user flow mapping. Now with AI as well, we can insert, where does ChatGPT live? Where does your customer bots live? But each of those user flow mappings gives us at least a baseline of what we were thinking about when we started building the product. What always happens with every product we've ever built, 3-4 months into it, we release the product and it's a bunch of customers are on it. And we had a false sense of how that product should go. And we can look back at the user map and we can usually say, this is where the mistake was, right? We missed the flow that a user was supposed to go through because they kept jumping it. They skipped the onboarding. They didn't get educated enough, right? And user flow can really be that mindset of where you're at when you first create the product so you can go back and edit it later on. All right, so lastly, UI UX. It's one of my favorite topics. UI UX is the process of understanding how a company designs a product and how a user interacts with that product. One of my favorite ones is the Heinz ketchup. So the Heinz ketchup bottle has been designed the same way, I don't know, for 100 years. And they even told you in a commercial how to tap the bottle to get ketchup out of it. Because they didn't want to change their bottle at the time, or maybe they didn't know how, but they invented user experiences to work with their product because they thought they had the best design on the marketplace. It took until the 2000s for them to realize if we just flip the bottle over, this makes a lot more sense for the users because they don't have to take that extra step. We don't have to educate them how to get ketchup out of the bottle. Remember you tapped like number 57 on the bottle and that's what ketchup, crazy. And so these companies, they kind of get out of their own way. They can allow users to have a better experience. Now, good thing for Heinz is there's not too much better ketchup on the marketplace, so they can kind of conquer that regardless of what bottle they put it in. I'm pretty sure we'll all still buy it. But when you're building a product, especially a user interface, you want to make sure those user interfaces are very similar to others. And I'll give you the craziest example. And before you flash this up on the screen, yeah, I think everyone in this room has been on a phone, on their iPhone, calling somebody, and then all of a sudden this pops up. It's like instant panic attack. You guys all seen this? Right? I don't even know what button they're trying to get you to press, but this is like, you panic, you don't know what to press, your phone's buzzing, the other person can't hear you, you're holding the phone, there's audio from everywhere. It's like instant tremors, right? And so this is a horrible user experience, and they still haven't fixed it really to this day. I think iPhone's still trying to figure out like what happens at that moment, but like bad UI causes problems. And so when you're building, especially software products over and over and over again, you need guidelines. And so what we've done for the last 6 years now is everybody in our company is trained on Apple and Google guidelines. They have a lot, you can go to the next slide. That's all good. They have a lot of decisions that they have made over the years for all of these apps. And anyone in our company, from development all the way to engineering, to QA, to design, to myself or Pardis, if there's ever an argument in our company about, what button should look like, what toggle should look like, how should this menu enact, we say, go to the guidelines and prove that it's there. And whatever's in those guidelines ends up being the answer or being the result of what we put into the products. And the reason why we do that, if you're using Uber and then you go to Airbnb and then you go to one of our apps, we want that to be so consistent. The back button's always in the top left corner. The close button's always in the top right corner. The menus are similar, and whatever Spotify does, everybody follows. So the new menu that Spotify has, I'm sure, is going to be copied. But those guidelines are really like our Bible of how to make sure that our new apps, our new products, are similar to every other product on the marketplace. And then we get to the fun stuff. So everything I've talked about so far, from revenue creation to prototyping, from designing to user personas to mapping out your user flows, none of that touched engineering. There is no development, there is no code. We haven't wasted any money, we haven't wasted any time on building an actual product that users can use. And still, to this point, we can still test our product in the marketplace through prototyping. And so when a customer comes to us and says, I'm interested in having this new idea solve whatever problem they're trying to solve, we can say, great, the faster we can get to the prototyping stage, the faster we can test it with your actual users. And then we can give Anna a bunch of screens to say, is this how you'd like to go to Disney? So if you go one more. Oh yeah, we don't have the video. So one of the products here is Pebble. We had the privilege to work with them for the last year on their product. And a prototyping screen looks and feels like a real app. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can put it on your phone. Every button you click has the same animation that your iPhone will have. Every back button will go back to the previous screen. You can truly enact how a phone should work, how an app should work on a phone with any of your users. Then you can take that prototype and give it to 100 or 1,000 users and say, if you were to interact with this with your real credit card, would you pay for this product? Would you successfully sign up as a customer? And again, we're still not touching development or engineering. We're able to test the market. We're able to test hundreds, if not thousands of users at a very low cost so that we can do the sales and marketing on that prototype. And that's what's hugely important about going through the process prior to putting code down. And yeah. Sure. So the question was, what program do we use for prototyping? We have 100%, and I think the whole market has switched over to Figma from Sketch and Adobe XD. So I haven't seen a non-Figma screen, even from our clients that are just startups and thinking like, hey, I want you to get you a design. They'll give us a Figma file. So I would say it's a majority of the market. And then lastly, right before I hand it back to Pardis, the big moment is we're trying to get a proposal for somebody to say, how much is it going to cost to develop this? And to do that, you truly have to understand everything I just told you and then put that into a report or a proposal that says, great, now that you have validated the market, you know the users are going to buy, this is going to cost X thousands of dollars. But most importantly, we can also deliver that with a return on investment sheet. So even though we know it could cost $100,000, we can look at their profit and loss statement and say, we know it's going to provide an efficiency on your COGS for, let's say, $30,000 a month. So in 3.5 months with this custom software, you're going to pay back the cost of the technology that we're proposing to you. And then on a slide before, I put innovation should be free. When you do product development correctly, it is free. It does create so much value for your company that you should be putting more money down because you're making more profits from the technology you've launched into the world.
All right. Do we have a question, Puck, on video? Yes. Should we allow it before we move on?
We'll see. If he's clothed and he's looking legitimate, then we'll go through. Ted Everett. Let's see. Maybe he'll come up. If not, then we'll just go on. So it's not coming through right now, so okay. Go ahead, parties.
Cool. Okay, if you want to come and ask a question, feel free. Okay, so now we built a product. We haven't even started doing any coding, and everyone comes to me and they're like, hey, I have a product idea. When should I start marketing it? And I'm like, as soon as possible, because there's a few things that you're going to learn when you're marketing before we get started. Number one, do people actually want this? And as we said back in the day, we used to care about like, hey, do I want this? If I build it, it'll get out there. But today, it's so easy to build software. Even ChatGPT can help you build some buggy software if you want. And so now it's no longer like, oh, cool, this is a new tool that's out there. It's like, oh, I built a tool that's like 1,000 other tools are out there. Do people actually want my tool, or do they want to keep using what they've been using before? And then the other thing that happens is that how easy is it for you to actually find and acquire your customers? Some people are like, oh, I want to build a really cool AI app for healthcare. Like, okay, cool. Like, how many hospitals do you know? And how easy do you know it is to get into a hospital? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, then that's something you want to figure out before you actually want to spend money or spend your time working on it. So that's why we've gone over to go-to-market. So go-to-market is a new evolution of marketing and sales, and it basically is a plan that details how you can go and engage and convince your customers to buy your product or service and gain a competitive advantage. Now, back in the day, it used to be like sales over here on the left and like marketing over here on the right, and hopefully we can work together. But that is no longer acceptable, and it's actually really hard to make it work, and it's like super expensive. And if anyone knows from today, it's like really hard to get investment money, and it's even harder to get marketing money. So you kind of want to work together. You go to the next slide, Andrew. So what people have figured out is that they actually all work together, which is like, well, rocket science. You actually have a 50% higher success rate because everyone's rowing on the same team, which of course makes sense to me. Hopefully it makes sense to you. Next slide. So this is the parts of go-to-market. And again, none of this is like record-breaking or groundbreaking or anything. But basically, it's like we start with the inbound. Thank you, HubSpot, for making that. And that's what I call like our content marketing, our social media marketing, and even our product-led growth campaigns can go into inbound marketing today. Then we've got our outbound campaigns. It's like I call that stranger marketing in sales. Oh, going back this way. Oh, camera. I'm sorry. I can't float away too far. Thank you. So outbound, I put advertising in it because it's people who don't know you. And there's also cold calling, cold emailing, cold LinkedIning, and also going to events because people don't know you're going to be there at an event, but they'll bump into you and you can talk to them. And then the last one that's like the newest thing that has come up since like 2020 or 2019 up is this like whole ecosystem thing. Like everybody now has a marketplace. Even QuickBooks has a marketplace. HubSpot has a marketplace. AWS and Google all have marketplaces. And there's companies that have just built on top of these marketplaces. So this is when you can do a lot of partnership marketing, you can do a lot of sponsorship marketing, and you can do community marketing. And that's how you can all kind of put it together. And these are what we call like the motions or parts of go-to-market. So when you're trying to figure out a scorecard, in the very beginning, I just tell startups to think of one. Focus on one place to start. And you basically just want to find one channel or one motion that you know can repeatedly bring you customers time and time again. Now, what does this do for you? Number one, it creates a revenue stream. Yay, investors like you. Number two, you actually get traction. And number three, you actually start understanding like, what's the cost to acquire this customer? Am I spending more than I can make back? Are the people I'm going after, are they poor and they can only spend $100? Or are they rich and they don't mind spending $500? And that's when you can kind of like bring it back to that disruptive strategy thing that like those like quadrants that Andrew was showing you. You just want to make sure that your marketing motions actually align to what people can spend. And then that also aligns to your revenue. And that's why we have to like start the baseline very importantly. And so, oh yes, hello there. Oh yeah, make Puck run.
Hi, my name is Carisha. You mentioned something about just picking one and focusing on that. Is that per motion?
So first, good question. Number one, you want to test a bunch of them out. And so you don't want to marry one until you know it's like actually making and working for you. So normally what I would do is based on the person of the founder, like the founder's persona of doing it, we want to pick the ones that might work for them. Are they good at writing? Yes or no? If you're not a good writer, you shouldn't do content marketing to start because it's going to take you forever to do it. Are you famous? You have like a lot of people who like follow you on LinkedIn or social media, then like social media makes sense for you because you actually have a following. If you don't have a following, then you're kind of in trouble and you probably don't want to start there. Is your product available today or not? If it is available, we can add some hooks into your product-led growth. If it's not, then you probably don't want to start with product-led growth. Same thing with advertising. Like, do we have money to spend? And then is the competition really low? Like, I've run some campaigns on Google Ads. There's only 20 cents a click, and we can acquire a customer for $3. Like, wow, that's amazing. And then we've run other campaigns where it's like $100 a click, and it would take us like $400 to acquire a customer. We probably don't want to do that for those companies. So you have to do like a lot of research and a lot of work, and just kind of figure out like, can I find the right people at these things? What's it worth for me to try? Do I know partnerships? Can I do sponsorships? Can I get a good deal out of something? And then you just want to like it's like putting your chips on like betting, basically. It's like playing roulette with your marketing and you just see what comes back. And then based on what's actually coming back, you can actually start saying like, oh, like if I can like message all these like CMOs on LinkedIn, like 5 of them want to talk to me and one of them comes in and turns into a demo. That's amazing. We should keep doing that. Or like, oh, I spent this ad campaign. We spent $1,000 and we got no one. Okay, let's stop doing that. Probably before you spend $1,000. It just depends on like how much money you want to spend and where you want to go. But then based on that and how easy it is to grab the customers and see how they actually work with their product and become customers, that's how you start building your whole strategy. Next slide. All right, now we're going to start building.
All right, so now we're finally at development, right? This is the process in which you have to bring in a team of experts, right? Whether you hire them for your startup, they're part of your founding team, or you go to an agency like us to get a team in a package or a team in a box to develop for your idea. But we're going to emphasize again the entire process, the user flows, the design, the branding, the journey, the prototyping, all of that is done. So now you're just giving the recipe to the development team to go execute that product. You can probably go right to the next slide. Yeah, sorry, thank you. So building a successful product is not like building a race car or a steamboat. Even though we all think that like the steamboat is the final goal, you always want to start small. And what Pardis and I are true believers in is there's no longer an MVP, there's an MVP with a credit card. And we truly believe that if you're going to build your first product, the customer should be willing to put their credit card down and commit. Because if they're not, you truly don't have an MVP because that last step is the most important. Are they willing to pay for you, for your services? Are they willing to pay for your idea? So we highly recommend that first product you build, we even call it phase 0 sometimes in our product roadmap. And we say, let's build a rowboat. Let's just get on the water, let's get off the beach, and let's make sure this thing floats. And will people pay for a rowboat to get out of their current situation, their current struggle that we had talked about before? After that, after they enjoy the rowboat, Pardis can now have some actual metrics and KPIs and marketing information that says these customers are interested in the rowboat, but they want to sail. They want to move faster. They want, the wind behind them. They don't necessarily need an engine yet. They don't need it to be automatic, but they are willing to go the extra mile and start communicating with your services and your customer team so that we can start getting data of what to build next. And maybe our product roadmap that we had at the very beginning, if we're agile enough, we can throw that out the window from the tail end and just focus on the chunks that are driving customer sales and customer revenue. And then finally, you build the steamboat. That's fine. No, it's fine. So just referencing technologies, a lot of questions we get when we do a talk like this is what technologies are relevant for today's development world? And I'm sure you've all heard of Flutter, React Native, hybrid applications, Bubble. All of those apps are really great at testing an idea, but they fall apart incredibly quickly when you go to scale. And depending on what type of scale you're after, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 users, you're really going to need something native and something that has a large development resource pool to work with. If you started building something in, let's say, Flutter, The
Flutter.
engineers, the engineers that work on Flutter are very hard to find. And when you do find them, it's kind of like a tower of knowledge. They build something so unique that you can't transfer it to another engineer. So we highly recommend that you build in the systems that are the most popular code base online so that you can find engineers to support your idea as you scale. And so for us, Swift, Kotlin, which are the Android and iPhone native, we do a lot of JavaScript, so Node.js, Angular, and React, the non-native one, but the web one. And then what we've learned over the years is that development should be part of the communication cycle. You should bring customers in to be part of the development cycle so that they can change colors from blue to green if they need to, but they also can communicate directly with the team. It's a fun process for them to be a part of. And so we do full transparency. We create a board in Monday.com, which we absolutely love. You guys should use it for all of your project management. It's a really, really great tool. And we stack every single task that the developer needs to work on, and we give that to the customer. And we say, go watch. And if they're interested, they can watch every day, each task being worked on, adding comments, hey, why is this way? And they jump in, and they can add their ideas and their suggestions to the process. And what this creates is an automatic Gantt chart, and it's an agile Gantt chart, right? What we do is we produce deliverables. So we might give you a login screen. We might give you a profile, maybe a user journey, whatever it happens to be. We're giving you a whole subset of code that you can take on your phone, grab it, download the test flight, and actually test. And because you can do that, it automatically turns to a Gantt chart where you have milestones. And we're no longer trying to figure out every single date to make sure everything's aligned. We're making sure that the deliverables that you can test are produced on a time scale in which we can hit our end goal, right? And last year we did 27 projects, 26 of them were on time and within 7% of the budget. So after you do this a lot, you start realizing that this process, this full transparency part of it, is really key and instrumental to allowing customers to hit their deadlines and allowing your product to get out the door when it's supposed to. Because the most important thing is marketing is going to be asking, like, when can we start selling this? And if you keep telling them, next week, next month, next week, like, they get frustrated, right? They want to plan as well. So planning the development cycles are hugely important for that. And so, so we talked about sprints. So we did this slide. I kind of talked through it. And then lastly, it's always important to understand what truly takes to build a product. I think a lot of people think just a developer behind a keyboard. And it is part of it, but the most important part is how a team can gel together to create, just like a basketball team. You have your point guard, your shooting guard, your forward. You need that for any development cycle as well. You need project managers. You need a designer, right, that has specific design skills for applications, whether they're mobile or web. You need DevOps to set up the infrastructure, to understand how the database is going to be managed. And then you get full stack developers, and it's all managed by a project manager, right? So it's important that this entire team, this entire group of people come together to build your product, whether it's at a startup level or an enterprise level. Now we're going to customer acquisition.
We finally have a product. We can market. Yay! So usually that's what happens when we get here. So number one, customer acquisition is just the same as like you're building a rowboat to a steamboat. You can't just go from 0 to 10,000 customers unless you're like super ready, like OpenAI, and it took them like 10 years to build what they built to get there. In normal people's world, you don't want to go from like 0 to 1,000 because you're not sure if all these users are the right users, if they're using your product all the same way. And there's a bunch of checks that you want to do every single time you want to get from point A to B to C to D. So this is how we like to define all of our marketing stages, and these are just based on the number of customers you have. And the main thing to do is, as you build solely with your right customers, you're actually able to keep checking and making sure that the product works every step of the way, and then the product actually scales. Sometimes we'll find that you're in a market that is very finite and you can't actually move forward after 100 customers. And in case if you know that, you're like, okay, like, do I want to still build this product or do I want to go to scale? You're not actually able to get there. Other times, if you go too fast, you're going to have too many differing opinions for people of what to build next, what they need, and then your whole team is going to be spread thin trying to support them all. So as you kind of build slowly and as you raise money, usually what I say is like you want to get to like stage 3 when you raise your Series A. And then once you raise that Series A, that's when you can go to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's when you normally have money. You're like, oh, I finally have $10 million. I can do all this marketing. I can hire all these people who can support my product. And so that's what you want to think. If you market too fast, which I've done by accident before for a few of my early customers, they can't then support the customers. And then the startup goes under trying to support customers. So you got to build slowly together as a team. We're going to move through this fast. We've got like 14 minutes left. And then when you're building your revenue campaign, this is a normal architecture that you want to have. You want to have fully defined stages all the way through because that's how you actually measure your success. So you basically want to start with attracting people on social media. They find you. You want to engage somewhere with your landing page or your product. You want to convert them to get an email either with like a lead magnet or a demo. And then if they buy right away, you can just like get them sent over to sales really fast and get an opportunity and purchase. Or sometimes you want to like nurture them over time and have them learn. Now, the important thing here is that when you're first starting out, you have to start with the people who are ready to buy right away. They have to be ready to convert and buy. If not, you're out of business. So you really don't want to spend too much time finding people who can learn about your product or learn about where you are. Think about HubSpot right now. HubSpot, we know, will be around for at least the next 10 years. They're public, they have money, they're like making good money. They're like, I don't know, their stock is at like $500 a share right now. So they don't mind if it takes you 5 years to learn how to do inbound marketing and then buy the product and then come in. But if you're a startup starting out, you don't have 5 years for someone to learn how to use your product. They need to use your product now and they need to pay you tomorrow or else you're probably going to be out of business. So that's what you want to think about when you're doing your whole revenue campaign architecture. Next slide. And then same thing with your campaign itself. Everyone's like, what's a campaign? And so it's basically, you want to have it all separated around a product topic or an offer. And then you have little things that you do across content, digital, lead generation, and sales. And again, you don't want to pick too many. You just want to pick the ones that you want to work on right now. If you're good at content writing, you should probably start there. If you're better at sales, you might want to start there. And you just kind of want to like slowly move forward and add more. It's like going to the gym. You can't go in and like lift 100 pounds the first time when you're like a tiny person or 500 pounds the first time. If you slowly lift your weights and you keep working towards it, you'll get good at it. And then as you move on, you can keep getting better and better. So I would say start slow, find early wins, see what works, and then keep doing it and adding more and more as you scale. And then once we're bringing leads in, we want to make sure they're the right leads because, you know, back in the day, every marketer was like, I did a bunch of activities. We're doing so well. And then sales was like, but nothing's in the pipeline. You guys aren't doing anything. And that's how they used to battle it out back in the day. So that's why we care about conversion optimization now. So here's the new ways of doing marketing. Number one, it used to be like, we just generated leads. I talked to 1,000 people. They all filled out my form. Yay. But no one really cares if they're filling out your form if you're not actually entering your opportunity pipeline. Same thing with cost. Everyone's like, oh, it cost me $1 to acquire a lead. And investors would be like, oh, sweet, nice work. But today they're like, hey, but how many of those leads are actually becoming customers? Are you spending $100 to acquire a customer or are you spending $10 to acquire a customer? You want to get that cost as low as possible. And then the new thing, everyone's like, we have net revenue retention. Hooray, we're actually able to like keep having people buy over and over again. But what if your costs are more than your revenue? You're actually negative. And in today's world, after whatever happened last year, investors are like, oh no, little startups, if you can't survive without my money, you're not getting my money. So you just want to make sure that you can survive with or without investment today. Next slide. And so here's how we break down our KPIs. And I like to break them down in as little buckets as possible because it's always easier to put things together when you're doing any type of analysis than it is to separate them once they're in one big bucket. So everything that I do, I just like to track all the way across based on the KPIs and then also break it down by platform or tactic or whatever you have here. And so you can go all the way down from ads to landing pages or app pages down to leads and customers. And I'll show you that in a second. So we also have a sales funnel, which you also want to have if you're B2B. And this is what every sales funnel should actually be. Sometimes demo could be like paid trial or like paid opportunity, but you need these stages. And if you have more than these stages, that's okay. If you're missing these stages, then you're doing it wrong. You're not special. Everyone does the same thing. Next slide. And then what happens is that you want to actually capture your marketing metrics that actually connect to the pipeline. And this is where HubSpot actually comes in. And so no matter the power of this is no matter what business is doing well, even a 5-year-old can look at this and be like, oh, this is good. Or, oh, this is not good. Because everything is now just really easy to understand. So right now, if you're looking at this and you're like, hey, like, what's the problem with my like marketing pipeline? Everyone's going to be like, hey, your session to contact ratio is a little bit low. Everything else looks good. We have a top of funnel problem. That's great. And if other companies, if they have a huge amount of contacts coming in, but no one's actually entering the pipeline, then you know you have a pipeline problem. You actually know where to look and fix what you're doing. And on the other side, we actually like to break that all down by source too. I want to know what sources are doing the best and which ones are doing the worst, and where should I not spend money anymore. And everyone doing this right now sees that direct traffic is our number one way of bringing in customers, and then paid search is number two, so we should probably spend time and money optimizing all that right now. And then you want to work backwards. You basically want to connect your content and messaging to the actual downloads that you're getting. And so on the left-hand side, there's different pages that are coming in. So you want to know, like, what does my audience care about? What are they reading every single day? What content's actually driving them over to my website? And then based on the other side, it's like, what are they actually downloading and caring about? And then you can see our ChatGPT Therapist ebook, which is pretty good, is our #1 downloaded item. Great. We should probably build out more AI content. And as you go from one to the other, this is how you start building out your strategy. And that brings you to dun, 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 the marketing funnel that always exists. And so this is how you get to your customer journey. And as you go and you're filling out like that user flow and interview, you actually want to think about that whole journey too on the other side of like, what's someone doing through those jobs to be done frameworks? What are they doing when they're looking, searching, or doing, trying to like have that struggle moment. And the way that you work is that you want to have something to help them through every single one of those struggle moments. You want to find them as early as possible, and you want to nurture them all the way through. And so this is what we have right now. Like on our awareness, we have social media and blogs and public relations. Then when they're interested, they might be reading more of our consideration blogs. Then when they're considering us, we have actual landing pages about our services. And then when they're looking for intent, it's like, I want to buy it. Now they're looking at review sites. Now they're looking at case studies. Then they're actually looking at the portfolios, and then they go to the purchase with a contact us form. And that's what you want to build out every single time. And it starts with talking to your customers and just asking them like, hey, when you're researching this, what do you do? What sites are you on? And then you want to make sure you're on every single one of those sites across the entire digital world. Next slide. Now we're going to get to my favorite part of the presentation, which is putting product and growth together. How much time we got, Puck? 5 minutes. One sentence each, Andrew.
All right. So frictionless onboarding. One of the important things from a development standpoint is how you're going to get them through the application so that you can actually get their email and information so that marketing can sell to them. So frictionless onboarding allows you to plan out from the very beginning the flow that it takes to go from concept or idea of downloading the app all the way through to giving you an email address.
Free trial actions, my favorite thing. Based on what people are actually doing in your app, you can send them different messages through HubSpot. I love HubSpot. So basically, I was like, they're actually wanting to upgrade. They looked at the upgrade page. Ooh, let's send them an email and get them to do that. They looked at the cancel page. Let's call them and make sure they're not going to cancel. My other favorite ones where we're using some SEO tool to actually look at all of our website pages. And we're like, oh, cool. It's a 2-week free trial. We can download it and stop using the tool and not even worry about it anymore. But those guys had a good idea. They said, if you want to download your data, you got to pay us right now, whether or not you're in a free trial or not. So just think about those actions that give people the actual value of what your app does and get paid.
The next one's viral loops, which is giving them a reason to share your product, right? One of the most important aspects of having your screen on their face, looking at your product, is that they can press that share button and share it out to their community, their friends. And so give them those touch points in which they're getting celebrated. Strava gives you all the badges. Every badge should be shared on social media so you can get that feedback loop from product all the way to spreading the word to other friends, and you can get that network effect.
Letting your users build on top of the product, another great platform play. So this is Notion, and Notion realized that people were actually building Notion and then charging people off of it. And Notion at first was mad. They're like, hey, they're using our product and making more money off of it. And they're like, oh, wait, we can share the money together. And so they actually now allow you to buy other people's templates on their marketplace. HubSpot does that too.
That's a good one. It's hard to build, but it's a really good one when you have it. It's like a later stage. One of the ones we've been doing since 2016, but everybody seemed to have realized, is that you can take your data, run an AI model through it, and actually use that data to produce more revenue. One of the products we've just released predicts house sales in the United States. And as of this month, we're doing 73% of all the houses in the United States and predicting with accuracy which ones will go on the market. We used massive data sets that have existed for many, many years, but we're able to take those data sets, combine them in a way, run an AI model through it, and then figure out the results, which anyone can do on their data if they have a large enough data set.
And, I think we have We'll have to reorder that. Play 5 recommendations. My other favorite thing for ecom, if you have 1,000 products, you don't want people to spend hours on your website trying to find 1,000 products. So you can actually use AI and say, hey, based on what you're looking at and based on the cart and based on the people that look like you, here are the products for you to pick from. And we have one that we're actually picking with 50% accuracy right out of the gate of them having something in the cart, and then the upsell is there. As we know, for ecom, it's all about average order value.
And that one's impressive because we didn't use any additional data. We already had the data from their product sales, and we were able to just take their product sales and say, these are the products that have the anomalies with the types of users. And we did it.
We made it! Yay! Now we'll take questions for 3 minutes before Puck kicks us
3
out.
minutes. And
3
wow,
minutes.
chock full of great insights. It was like a blueprint to the future. Let's get 1 or 2 questions
we
if we
got
can
2
fit
right
them in.
here.
Sure.
I have 2 quick questions. The first one is all the screenshots, was that HubSpot with the funnels and the
No, that was
chart?
DataBox. I was
Databox-
taking it
oh,
from
DataBox, cool.
HubSpot. Mhm.
And then my other question is, if you have someone that knows what they're doing, like you, for example, and you're talking about trying different things in terms of marketing, what is like a good sample size money-wise for like a marketing campaign? Are you talking about like $100, $200
It
per
depends on your
test?
audience. So if you use,
B2C.
well, it depends on your audience for B2C. I have to be more specific, but I have a bunch of tools that I use. I can talk to you afterwards. I'll show you. It depends. It could be $50. It could be $1,000, depending on your audience. and
It's your
competition.
CAC. It's how much are you willing to spend to see a result. And if you can get $50 out and 1,000 people click it and only $49 is coming back in, well, you know.
Oh, that's like a whole conversation.
Yeah.
I will talk to you about
Yeah.
that.
It's a good question.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Okay, quick. Hi, thank you. Awesome presentation.
I love your notes, by
My
the
name is
way.
Ayelet. Sorry?
I loved your notes.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So I wanted to ask, when the scenario for both of you
Mhm.
is B2B in terms of sales, so the target customers, for example, a financial institution or healthcare, but the target user is a
Mhm.
consumer. So for example, a customer of a bank or
Yeah.
a
Ooh.
patient.
Yeah.
How do you do the sales and marketing combined?
Gotta double it.
Yeah.
Every time you do it, you need one for both. So you need one for acquiring your banking customers, and then you need to work with the bank to help them market it to other people. And that's really expensive. So I always tell people, find one that knows how to market to bring the others for you in the very beginning. And then eventually you can start doing more and penetrating all their markets together.
And keeping everything separate is important. So your customer database that's in one, make sure they're funneled so that you get the results and the KPIs measured specifically for them.
You there, sir? Start yelling or I'll run over to you. Sorry, Puck.
And we're going to have to
last one.
cut it off
We'll
after
stay
this.
right here afterwards so you guys can come talk to us. JP Morgan did the same thing to us. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, thank you so much for a great session. My question is, you said start getting paid now. What if you're very new, you're B2C, but you want to get customer feedback? When do you start collecting money because you want to prevent them from like coming on the app to test?
After you built the rowboat, right? So take your product, 24 months, 36 months, whatever you have planned out, cut it down to like 2 or 3 months and build a product that people will pay for. In Notion's case, you know, we just use that as an example. Get the framework up and see if people will pay for a better way to take your notes and like basically tasks. If people will pay for that, then ask them what the next feature set will be. But you want to
I'll
do
talk
it.
to you based on what you have too.
Yeah,
I can
and it's
tell
as
you.
early as possible. You truly want to get people paying a credit card as early as possible, even if you're an early stage startup.
My other favorite thing is that every startup is a glorified spreadsheet. And so just think how to spreadsheet it if it's
That's
digital.
You don't need a product until you can prove out with spreadsheets that it works.
Yes, I know there's more questions in the audience, and they're going to stick around.
They're
for a
right
few
here.
minutes.
Also find me on LinkedIn. Find Andrew on LinkedIn. If you Google 923, Andrew's name will pop up because he knows how to use Google very well. If you type in my first name, you will find me on Google too because I also know how to use Google very well. We'll be here for questions. We're here in Boston. Come talk to us. Come hang out with us. We love marketing and we love products.
Yes.
No,
Thanks,
really
everyone.
great, really great. Both of you. That was one of the most insightful sessions we've had. Lots of
Thanks,
information. You're amazing. Thank you.
You're amazing.
Now, everyone that is going to stick around in this room, we're going to do cap table best practices.